This season, the Raptors and fans were expecting some very big things out of reigning Rookie of the Year Scottie Barnes, and though this season hasn't been necessarily a bad season for the player, it maybe hasn't been quite the leap that we were expecting to see, and I think that is completely fair to say. But in this video, I want to explain to you that with about 20 games remaining in the season, this is why you can expect a huge leap to come from the player to close it out and potentially get us into the playoffs. Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports. This is your source for the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. I do videos like this and live stream watch parties for Raptors games, so if you like what you see from today's video and you want more content just like it, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You can help me on my road to 14,000 subs, and if you find yourself enjoying this video along the way, hit that thumbs up button. It does make a huge difference to the performance of the videos on this channel. But our video in question today, we're talking about Scottie Barnes. Yes, this season as a whole, it's been fine. Scottie Barnes is averaging 15.5 points per game. His rebound numbers around 7. His assist numbers have jumped up to 5 assists per game, but the field goal percentage is a little bit down. And just based on the preseason expectations that fans had for Scottie Barnes and the player coming off of that Rookie of the Year win last year and such a fight for that trophy between himself and Evan Mobley as the Raptors ended up finishing as the 5th seed, there were aspirations, I think, from Scottie Barnes himself, and also the notion from the fans that, Scottie Barnes is set to take a big jump this season, take his game to the next level. Fans were even wondering if this would be maybe part of the year where Scottie Barnes starts to take over this team and starts to take over as the prominent number one guy for this team. And though that has not happened here, Scottie Barnes had put together a fine season at only 21 years old. There still are those very, very good signs, and especially those very, very good flashes of Scottie Barnes' ability, and more importantly, Scottie Barnes' potential in the NBA. Raptors fans, I'm telling you, be patient with this guy, because I think there are great things coming in the future. But also, there could be some great things coming in the present for the player, as I think the next 21 games are going to be excellent from Scottie Barnes, and I'm expecting a leap to come from the player, and there are a variety of reasons why I think that is the case. For starters, in the last few games, Fred VanVleet has been missing due to the birth of his third child, so we've seen the Raptors in a little bit of a different lineup here where Scottie Barnes has to be the main point guard for this team. Now, I know that there are a lot of Raptors fans online. I even know there's other Raptors YouTubers who comment on Scottie Barnes potentially being the point guard for the team going forward. Lots of people don't want to extend Fred VanVleet. They want to see him leave in the offseason, whether that's through walking away in free agency, whether that's through a sign and trade, wherever it may be. And the replacement for Fred VanVleet should just quite simply be Scottie Barnes. Move him into the point guard position. That is, after all, the position he played in his only college season with Florida State, and maybe he can do a job there. But the last few games where he's been in that role, the last couple of games where he's been in that role, have highlighted some of the key things as to why that should not be the case. Now, this is not a knock against Scottie Barnes, in my opinion, because I think he's a great player. He's just not really built for that point guard position. What Fred VanVleet does in the point guard position that just isn't quite there from Scottie Barnes. I think the biggest one that was especially on display yesterday against the Cleveland Cavaliers, their excellent defense, their excellent drop coverage defense, is the pull-up threat that Fred VanVleet has. Yes, you might think that Fred VanVleet is, quote-unquote, a shot chucker. That is not the case. Part of his game and part of what makes him an effective player and an effective point guard, not only for the Raptors, but from an NBA standpoint, is the pull-up shooting, which just brings a little bit more defenders towards him because, first of all, Fred VanVleet is a very good pull-up shooter. The metrics would indicate that. The eye test would indicate that, which brings defenders closer up, which provides a little bit more space for the players on the interior. Scottie Barnes just simply doesn't have that pull-up game in his repertoire, so defenses can sag a little bit, which can clog a lot of the space on the inside. It also allows the defenders to focus a little bit more on the three-point shooters around the arc. So where Fred VanVleet is involved, you can find a lot more different ways in order to find your three-point shooting. But in yesterday's game, Siakam and Barnes, essentially the only way the Raptors were creating three-point opportunities was just driving and kicking. And it was very easy for the Cleveland Cavaliers to defend that. Also, what Fred VanVleet brings from an offensive standpoint is the ball handling load and the playmaking. Scottie Barnes is a good ball handler, a good playmaker, but he is not as effective as Fred VanVleet in those endeavors. Now, there are different situations where Scottie Barnes can be the ball handler, and in fact, I would say is the better point guard than Fred VanVleet, but those largely come in full court settings. If Scottie Barnes can initiate the offense from a full court setting, I think that is superior to Fred VanVleet. But as the game gets slower and we're in half court settings, I think Fred VanVleet is the far superior point guard. So the idea that Scottie Barnes could be your point guard from a game-to-game basis, I understand how people come to that conclusion. However, in practicality, and we've seen it a little bit here, it's actually not the case. He's not going to be effective in those roles. But like I said, he is still a talented player in initiating the offense in certain circumstances. He is a good playmaker, and I think that the best role for that is going to be in the point forward spot. Playing as a forward for this team, that is going to be the best role for Scottie now, and I believe the trajectory of his career, the best case is with him playing as the forward. And that's where the situation has really played into his favor right now. The Raptors spent so much of this season, the first 3 quarters of this season essentially, juggling around lineups, trying to figure out the right rotation to get the most out of this team. And largely, it has been ineffective, but maybe where they've seen the most success coming up until this point is with Scottie Barnes pretty much playing as the center for this team. Though Scottie Barnes can do a job and he's talented enough, especially, we saw with the point guard stuff, he was fine, he just wasn't what we needed it to be. With the center position, he was fine. It's just we could definitely do better, and we went out and get Jakob Poeltl to replace that. But he's talented enough, and this is a testament to his talent. He's talented enough to play all of these different roles and do it effectively and not necessarily be a huge liability in those spots. But now that we have the center on this team, now that we're going to get our point guard back, Scottie Barnes can finally play in his proper role as a forward with the right players all around him to find success, with an actual point guard who can set up plays, with an actual center who can provide spacing with screens and can get Scottie Barnes more on the outside and more into cutting scenarios. This is playing into Scottie Barnes' hands as we go through the rest of the season. Largely what worked last season for Barnes is just the fact that we were bewildered by his talent. We were not expecting Scottie Barnes to come into the league and be necessarily NBA ready to take on that huge load offensively and defensively that he took. Raptors fans were shocked. I mean, we understood the pick. Maybe he was not our first option from the draft, but we understood the thought process from the front office in selecting Scottie Barnes 4th overall. But I think many of us who are telling the truth would say that we did not expect him to come in and dominate as he did and go out and win the Rookie of the Year award. But he did that. And a lot of that, like I said, came to the unknown about the player, unknown how to stop him. But a lot of where struggles come in the second year for an NBA player, and this is why the term sophomore slump is such a coined and so highly used term across all sports, including the NBA, because now this season, teams are figuring out exactly how to stop Scottie Barnes. And that's where a lot of the struggles came earlier on in the season. Now he's been working through that. He's been playing a lot better, and the Raptors are using him in a different way because earlier on in the season, we were like, hey, we need this guy to take the load on offensively. We need to give him the ball and have him create the shots for us, especially in that pocket of earlier on in the season where Pascal Siakam was injured. But Scottie Barnes, that's just not the type of player that he is, or at least that's not the type of player that he is in this current state at only 21 years old. Sky's the limit. But right now, when the Raptors need wins, maybe that is not the best role for the players. So that is where the great NBA players separate themselves from the good NBA players. Those are the players that they come in with the unknown and then they dominate. And then as teams start to figure them out, it's how their game evolves to a different level. But I think there is a variety of ways in which Scottie Barnes can do that going forward. But for the right now and what's going on at the moment, I think that having all these players around can make a significant difference for Scottie Barnes for this season. Where he was even having maybe a little bit more troubles playing as a center for this team, or just any position for that matter, defenses were guarding him like Draymond Green. There was absolutely no respect for Scottie Barnes from a jump shooting standpoint, and respectfully, there doesn't really need to be. There's no threat of the pull-up J hurting your team. So if he wants to take that, sure, you can allow it, but ultimately they sag back, they clog down the paint, which makes Scottie Barnes' scoring more difficult because it's difficult for him to blow by players. It makes the playmaking more difficult because there's less space to find those passes, was an extra defender clogging up of those areas. But now, with all the different action we can run here, Fred VanVleet, when he's back, he's going to be spacing the floor. OG Anunoby, when he finally gets his legs under him, can hit a three-point shot. he's going to be spacing the floor. Jakob Poeltl can't space the floor from a shooting standpoint, but like I've said many times, he makes room by his playmaking, his high post playmaking, which allows some extra space on the interior, a spot where Scottie Barnes really likes to thrive, and also with his screen setting. Right now, Scottie Barnes, it feels like when he turns it on and is engaged, he is a deadly player. We see that a lot in fourth quarter, late game situations, but we don't always see it out of the gate in these NBA games. But with all of the right tools around him now and playing in his proper position where I think he's going to be at his most effective, I think that we can genuinely see a leap coming for this player for the rest of the season. It's also been a long associated with trend with these younger players in the league that they get better as the season goes on. I guess because there's more growth that can happen here. There's further room to go upwards for these younger players. So as they get through the season, as they start to really feel things out, as the game starts to slow down from as we progress through the season, that's where they can thrive a little bit more. We saw some struggles start of this season for Scottie Barnes, and those struggles definitely haven't gone away completely, but I think they're seldom seen compared to what we had in the first few weeks, in the first couple months of the NBA season. So as a player gets into the role that he wants to be in, where he doesn't have to have all the playmaking load on offense in terms of being the point guard, being the ball handler, but he can do that in flashes, where he doesn't need to be the center on defense, the center on offense, constantly running post-up plays, being the main screener. And though he can do that, he's not going to do it all the time, but we can do so in certain spots that are going to be more effective for the player. That going along with the fact that as players get through the season, I mean, we've seen Scottie Barnes thrive in these fourth quarter settings. Well, how about getting into the fourth quarter of the season where Raptors, the team, they understand every win is going to be significant. And that definitely reigns true for this week as well, as the Raptors take on the Chicago Bulls tomorrow and the Washington Wizards twice this week. Two teams in the play-in positions right now. This could be the separating factor of if the Raptors are in a 7th or 8th seed and have double elimination for the play-in, or if it's do or die in 2 games in the 10th or 9th position in the league. This is going to be extremely telling. So, as we get through this season, Scottie Barnes, with all these things going his way, I think we can expect a big leap. We have not seen that in the last 2 games for sure, but as the energy gets there, the game slows down, and all these things play into his favor, I'm expecting a leap. What needs to change going forward for Scottie Barnes isn't going to happen in the next 20 or so games, but the biggest thing that Scottie Barnes can do, because we know the talent is there in a lot of different areas, it's the jump shooting. When he has players actually guarding him on the perimeter or just inside, in the mid-range areas, when he has players actually guarding him in those spots who are fearful of that jump shot, it's going to open up every other aspect of his game. First of all, like I said earlier, it's all of a sudden going to be easier to blow by players. When it's easier to blow by players and the players are playing up on you, there's more space for your teammates to operate. The playmaking will start to come a little bit more. As all these things start to come and just bring up the morale, bring up his momentum, I think that is also going to translate to the defensive end of the court, where things have also been improved there, having that rim protector as the base for your team. So Scottie Barnes is just such a disrupting player with his wingspan, with his hands, and his defensive tendencies. Having that rim protector to usher players towards, when we've seen how much better the Raptors' defense has been when Jakob Poeltl's on the court compared to when he's not on the court. It's helping everybody in the team. Scottie Barnes is not exempt from that. But what do you guys think of Scottie Barnes? Do you think he's set for a big leap for the end of the season, or do you think it's going to be more of the same? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, hit that like button and subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports for more content just like this.